I want you to close your eyes for just a second and imagine a really specific scenario.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, exactly. So you are a world-famous music mogul, right? You spent decades building an absolute empire from the ground up.
Right.
And you were walking into a high-end recording studio in Dallas, Texas. And you know this environment perfectly, like the heavy leather couches, the intricate soundproofing on the walls, that heavy bass vibrating subtly through the floorboards from the other rooms.
The standard industry vibe.
Exactly. And you were there to settle what is, by all accounts, a relatively standard contract dispute. You're meeting with a rising star that you personally discovered and signed to your label.
So you're expecting, the usual friction.
Right. You're walking in expecting some tense negotiations, maybe some lawyers posturing in expensive suits, a few begrudging handshakes, and a massive stack of paperwork to formalize a release.
Just another Tuesday in the music business.
Right. But instead of a boardroom negotiation, the heavy acoustic doors of the studio lock behind you.
Oh, man.
The atmosphere in the room just instantly shifts from corporate tension to sheer panic. And suddenly, the cold, heavy barrel of an AK-style pistol is pressed directly to the back of your head.
That is terrifying.
It gets worse. You are forced, under the threat of immediate execution, to sign away your commercial rights, while a room full of armed men aggressively strip you of your wedding ring, your diamond chains, and your cash.
I mean, that visceral image, it feels entirely ripped from the cold open of, a Hollywood crime thriller.
Oh, 100%.
It's the kind of setup designed to keep an audience glued to their seats, right? Just waiting for the protagonist to figure a way out of an impossible trap.
But the thing is, that is not a movie script. That is the minute-by-minute reality alleged in a staggering 32-page federal criminal complaint originating from January of 2026.
It is just a massive document.
It really is.
Sure.
And the target of this deep dive today, especially for those of you listening to this audio on our YouTube channel, is the breathtaking set of allegations against the rapper Pooh Shiesty.
Whose legal name is Lantrell Williams Jr.
All right, Williams Jr. And it's not just him. It's his father and a crew of 7 associates. The United States federal government is formally accusing this entire group of orchestrating a coordinated armed kidnapping and robbery targeting the iconic rapper Gucci Mane.
Who is identified throughout the legal documents as RD or Radrick Davis.
Exactly, RD, along with several members of his entourage. And before we jump in, what are we actually looking at to break this down?
Yeah, so to navigate the sheer volume of evidence in this case, we are anchoring our analysis on a really comprehensive breakdown from the Law and Crime Network.
They do great work.
They really do. Their team, led by Jesse Weber, performed this exhaustive forensic deconstruction of the Department of Justice affidavit.
Okay.
And we're also looking at the public statements in the press conference held by the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, Ryan Rayold.
Got it.
And I have to say, the documentation is incredibly dense. It maps out not just a violent encounter, but a massive, massive digital footprint.
Right. But before we take a single step into the surveillance timelines, the GPS tracking, and the, frankly, unbelievable sequence of events, we have to lay down a foundational legal boundary for this entire conversation.
Absolutely. We must keep the presumption of innocence at the absolute forefront.
Always.
Everything we are dissecting today is pulled directly from a federal affidavit. And an affidavit is just a sworn statement of probable cause, right? It's submitted by an FBI special agent to a judge to secure warrants.
So it's the government side of the story.
Exactly. The digital telemetry, the synchronized tracking data, the eyewitness accounts we're about to explore. I mean, it all paints an incredibly detailed, overwhelming picture. However, every single individual named in these documents, from Lantrell Williams Jr. down to every alleged associate, is completely innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Right. We are just exploring the architecture of the allegations. We are not a jury.
Exactly. We are functioning as guides through the government's case, not rendering a verdict.
So let's start exploring that architecture by looking at the catalyst. Because to understand how a standard music industry meeting devolves into an alleged federal kidnapping, you really have to understand the power dynamics in the room.
You really do.
You have 2 central figures anchoring this entire narrative. On one side, the victim, identified as RD, and based on the inclusion of his real name, Radrick Davis, and his status as the head of 1017 Records, this is widely acknowledged to be Gucci Mane.
Right.
And on the opposing side, you have the primary suspect, Lantrell Williams Jr., commercially known as Pooh Shiesty. The critical connective tissue here is that Williams Jr. was a signed artist under RD's label umbrella.
Yeah, and the dynamic between a label head and a rising star, I mean, it is historically fraught.
Oh, the industry is famous for it.
Right. The music industry is just littered with cautionary tales of artists feeling trapped in predatory contracts, signing away their masters or their publishing rights before they truly understand, the immense commercial value of their own art.
Yeah, you hear about it all the time.
The tension over contractual releases is a tale as old as the recording industry itself. From Prince fighting Warner Bros. To TLC famously declaring bankruptcy at the height of their success.
So the desire to break a contract is super common.
Totally common. But the alleged methodology used here, however, is unprecedented.
Yeah, unprecedented is a good word for it, because the cast of characters extends far beyond just the boss and the artist.
Yeah.
The complaint introduces this massive supporting cast.
Right.
You have Williams Sr., the father of Williams Jr., who the government alleges acted as the primary logistical coordinator.
Which is wild in itself.
Right. And then you have a tactical crew of 7 other individuals. Rodney Wright Jr., known commercially as Big 30, Kadarius Waters, Terrence Rogers, Darian Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Cord Johnson, and Darian McDaniel.
So we are looking at an organized unit of 9 individuals moving in concert?
9 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the timeline of their coordination anchors on January 10th, 2026 in Dallas, Texas. And the preamble to the alleged violence is, I think it's one of the most fascinating psychological elements of the entire affidavit.
Oh, without a doubt.
The government asserts that earlier that day, Williams Sr. and Williams Jr. engaged in a highly specific, fundamentally mundane errand.
Mundane is putting it lightly.
The electronic location data and corresponding surveillance video allegedly placed the father and son at a local Staples store.
A Staples store?
Yeah.
Oh.
You might be looking at this situation, an alleged armed, multi-man takeover of a recording studio, and wondering how a trip to an office supply store factors into a federal kidnapping indictment.
It sounds like a joke, honestly.
Right. But according to the government, they were there for one hyper-specific reason: to use the commercial printing services to physically print off the contractual release paperwork.
I mean, just think about that for a second. This is the document designed to legally sever Williams Jr. from 1017 Records.
The juxtaposition is almost impossible to process.
It really is. On one hand, you have this desire for absolute formal legal legitimacy. The act of printing a physical contract implies a belief in the established legal system.
Right. It suggests a desire to have a piece of paper that can be filed with a court or a management agency to prove a change in business status.
But the paradox is that they allegedly took this freshly printed, legally formatted document, walked into a recording studio, and enforced the signature using an AK-style pistol.
It is a spectacular display of cognitive dissonance. You are attempting to utilize the mechanisms of the legal system while simultaneously committing a massive felony to trigger those mechanisms.
Makes no sense.
None. Any first-year law student, or frankly anyone who's ever watched a legal drama on TV, understands the concept of duress.
Exactly.
A contract signed with a high-capacity firearm pressed to your skull is instantly voidable. It possesses 0 legal weight.
It reveals a profound, almost magical thinking regarding how the law operates.
Magical thinking, that's a great way to phrase it.
Right. It suggests a worldview where the physical paper itself possesses an innate, unbreakable authority, entirely divorced from the context of how the signature was obtained.
Like it's a spell or something.
Yes. They seemingly believe that the sheer existence of RD's signature on the dotted line would serve as an impenetrable legal shield.
And furthermore, that mundane errand provides the prosecution with one of the most vital elements of a major criminal case.
Premeditation.
Premeditation. The FBI isn't viewing that Staples receipt as just an errand. They're viewing it as a timestamped declaration of intent.
Oh, 100%.
Procuring the physical document hours before the confrontation eliminates any defense argument that the violence was just, a spontaneous escalation of a heated argument.
Right. They can't say things just got out of hand.
Exactly. The government is laying out a narrative that the violent extraction of that signature was the planned objective from the moment they woke up that morning.
And the execution of that objective allegedly began at an office building in Dallas that afternoon. The affidavit methodically tracks the logistics.
Break that down for us.
So, RD and his entourage arrived to utilize a specific recording studio, but found it closed. The surveillance stills embedded in the DOJ document show Williams Sr. outside the building, actively working his phone.
So he's scrambling to find the spot.
Yeah, he connects with an individual identified as JN, the owner of a different studio within the exact same complex. A new space is secured, and at 3:39 p.m., a studio assistant arrives to unlock the doors and prep the room.
Okay, so the room is trapped.
4 minutes later, at 3:43 p.m., the operational phase begins. The surveillance cameras monitoring the east side of the building capture the arrival.
Here they come.
All 9 suspects, Williams Jr., his father, and the 7 associates, they enter the lobby in a unified group, moving purposefully toward the newly secured studio.
9 guys walking in together.
But within that movement, the FBI highlights a micro-interaction that speaks volumes about their tactical preparation.
This detail is crazy.
It is. One associate, Gibson, identified by his distinct dreadlocks, is recorded exiting the building momentarily. He returns shortly after with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder.
Right. And that bag serves as the ultimate camouflage in this specific environment.
Absolutely.
Because if a group of 9 men walks into a commercial office building openly carrying AK-style and AR-style pistols, someone is calling 911 before they ever reach the elevator.
Oh, immediately.
But a man walking into a recording studio carrying a heavy duffel bag, that is the universal visual language of the music industry.
Yeah, it looks like an assistant carrying XLR cables or heavy microphones or personal gear for a 12-hour recording session.
Exactly. It is a Trojan horse designed to introduce overwhelming firepower into a confined space without triggering any early warning systems.
So the trap is now fully set. The 9 men along with the bag are inside. The target, RD, is in the room with his own personnel, including individuals identified as BP and MM, and critically, their own hired security detail.
The security detail is key.
We'll get to them. But the atmosphere is primed. According to the witness statements detailed by the FBI, Williams Jr. initiates the confrontation by pulling RD aside to discuss the contract.
The very contract printed at Staples hours earlier.
Yes. And an argument ignites.
And the transition from a heated music industry dispute to a federal crime is alleged to have happened in a fraction of a second.
Just pops off.
Yeah. Williams Jr. allegedly produces the black AK-style pistol, points it directly at RD, and issues an explicit, lethal ultimatum. Sign the release papers immediately.
Consider the sheer psychological terror of that specific environment.
Yeah, put us in the room.
A recording studio is fundamentally designed to trap sound. The walls are heavily insulated, the doors are thick and airtight. You are in a reinforced box.
Like a bunker.
Right. When a high-capacity weapon is drawn in that kind of confined space, the acoustic and physical reality is terrifying. RD, facing the barrel of an AK-style pistol, makes the only calculation a human being can make to ensure their own survival.
He signs the document.
He signs the document. But the obsession with manufacturing the illusion of consent didn't stop with the physical signature.
This part makes me shake my head every time I read it.
The affidavit alleges an incredibly bizarre secondary action. Another associate, Wright, pulls out a phone and actively records RD signing the paper.
Are you kidding me?
He then forces RD, under the continued threat of the weapons in the room, to look into the camera and verbally declare that he is willingly releasing Williams Jr. from his contractual obligations.
So they are essentially directing a hostage video and treating it like a corporate deposition.
Yes.
They are creating a permanent, high-definition digital record of their own federal crime under the wildly misguided belief that they are documenting illegal corporate settlement.
It's unbelievable.
But the situation doesn't stabilize once the paper is signed. The extraction of the signature acts as a catalyst, right? It blows the doors wide open for a chaotic mass-armed robbery.
Yeah, once the primary objective is ostensibly achieved, the discipline of the group seemingly shatters.
It just turns into a free-for-all.
Williams Jr. allegedly begins physically stripping RD of his overt displays of wealth. He demands the victim's wedding ring, his luxury watch, his diamond earrings, and his cash.
It is a visceral, deeply personal degradation, taking a man's wedding ring.
And while the label head is being robbed of his wedding ring, the rest of the crew allegedly goes to work on the collateral victims.
Right, the entourage.
The affidavit specifically names Waters, Rogers, Johnson, Glover, McDaniel, and Gibson as producing their own weapons. Suddenly, the room is flooded with a mix of handguns and AR-style pistols.
It's an arsenal.
The victim, identified as BP, is violently shoved onto a couch in the control room. An associate known to BP as CMO begins rifling through his pockets, stealing his wallet, and physically tearing a chain and a pendant off his neck.
And the volatility in that room was microscopic away from turning into a homicide investigation.
Oh, it was on a knife's edge.
The complaint details that McDaniel pointed his weapon at BP and explicitly threatened to shoot him simply for moving on the couch.
Just for flinching.
Yeah. And the person who steps in to stop the execution is the primary suspect himself.
Williams Jr.
Right. Williams Jr. allegedly barks an order at McDaniel, instructing him not to pull the trigger.
That is a fascinating glimpse into the chaotic command structure of the room.
Absolutely. The architect of the armed takeover recognizes that while an armed robbery and a coerced contract might be something they foolishly think they can navigate, a murder charge leaves a body in the room and initiates a completely different level of law enforcement response.
He is acting as the emergency brake on his own runaway train.
That's a perfect analogy.
Oh.
But that brake did not stop the physical assaults.
No, it didn't. The victim, identified as MM, suffered a brutal hands-on attack.
What happened now?
The affidavit alleges he was choked from behind with such sustained force that he was brought to the very edge of unconsciousness.
Yeah.
And the federal government didn't merely document his verbal testimony. The 32-page complaint actually incorporates forensic photography.
Like pictures of the injuries.
Yes. The images display severe, visible lacerations, cuts, and abrasions across MM's neck and wrists, physically corroborating the violent reality of the chokehold.
It's indisputable evidence.
And while he was being asphyxiated, the crew systematically stripped him of a luxury watch, a designer Louis Vuitton bag, and even his headphones.
Now, you might be listening to this and wondering, where was the security detail during this onslaught?
It's the obvious question.
These executives travel with professionals whose exclusive job is to prevent this exact nightmare scenario.
Right.
But the reality of tactical defense, especially in a confined space, comes down to force multiplication.
Yeah, the security personnel in that room made a rapid, grim, tactical assessment. They realized they were catastrophically outgunned and outnumbered.
It's basic math at that point.
It is. If a single security guard attempts to draw a concealed handgun against half a dozen men already holding AR and AK-style pistols at the ready, the result is an instantaneous crossfire.
Not a bloodbath.
Bullets rip through the room, and the likelihood of the primary protectant, RD, being killed skyrockets. By choosing to stand down and comply, the security detail likely prevented a massacre. They allowed the robbery to proceed in exchange for their clients' lives.
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
But definitely the right one.
Absolutely.
So the terror lasts for an agonizing 60 minutes. They have the signatures, they have the jewelry, the cash, the bags. Now they face the most dangerous phase of any operation. The exit.
Right.
And they don't just back out of the room, they utilize the victims as human shields.
The exit strategy detailed in the document is chilling. To ensure they can move through the hallways without the security detail or the victims attempting a counterattack, Williams Jr. allegedly presses the barrel of his firearm directly into the back of BP's head.
Using him as a physical barricade.
Exactly. He marches BP and RD out of the control room and directs them toward the west entrance of the complex.
And amidst this incredibly tense extraction, there is a moment of dialogue captured in the witness statements that feels entirely surreal.
Yeah, this part blew my mind.
As they're being marched out, MM, the man who was just choked nearly to death, looks at Williams Jr. and asks, "Are you really taking my watches?"
It perfectly encapsulates the sheer psychological shock of the event. The brazenness of an armed takeover in a commercial studio over a contract dispute was so far outside the realm of expected reality that the victims were struggling to intellectually process that the robbery was actually materializing in front of them.
They couldn't believe it was actually happening. So at 4:48 p.m., the surveillance cameras logged the suspects fleeing the studio and pushing out through the east entrance of the building. They scatter to their vehicles and speed away into the Dallas afternoon.
In their minds, they have likely just pulled off the perfect modern heist.
Well, for sure. They secured the contract release, they acquired hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets, and they left the physical perimeter without hearing a single police siren.
But they were operating under a completely antiquated 1990s definition of a successful getaway.
Oh, definitely.
Fleeing the physical location of the crime is the easiest component of modern criminal evasion. The second they stepped out of that soundproof room and into the streets, they entered digital panopticon.
Leaving the physical location means nothing when you cannot outrun the invisible, omnipresent digital footprint of the year 2026.
Nothing at all.
And this shift from the visceral terror in the studio to the cold, mathematical precision of the investigation is where this story becomes truly mind-bending. We are talking about the reality of digital prosecution.
Yeah, the DOJ affidavit reads less like a traditional detective story and more like a forensic data audit.
It's basically an Excel spreadsheet of guilt.
It is a terrifying realization for any defense attorney. We no longer live in a world where wiping down a door handle and wearing a mask guarantees anonymity. We live in a world where your pocket, your car, and your infrastructure are constantly logging your coordinates.
And the crown jewel of this digital prosecution, the absolute most staggering detail in the entire 32-page document, involves the primary suspect, Lantrell Williams Jr.
This is the part that breaks my brain.
We have to make this incredibly clear. He was not a ghost. He was not operating off the grid. During the entirety of this alleged, highly coordinated, heavily armed federal kidnapping, he was wearing a federally mandated ankle monitor.
It represents an almost unfathomable disconnect from reality.
I mean, an ankle monitor.
Williams Jr. was currently serving a sentence for prior federal drug and weapons charges. The strict condition of his home detention was the requirement to wear an electronic location monitoring device.
And these aren't the old school monitors, right?
No, the technology behind these monitors has evolved significantly. They are no longer just radio frequency tethers that alert a base station if you leave the house. They are active, continuous GPS broadcasters.
Active GPS.
They ping highly accurate encrypted coordinates directly to federal probation servers every minute of every day.
How do you rationalize that risk?
You can't.
It is the equivalent of robbing a bank while wearing a neon sign that broadcasts your social security number to the FBI. You are orchestrating a violent felony while physically strapped to a device engineered by the government to track your exact location on the globe.
It points to a severe breakdown in basic risk assessment, likely fueled by an intense impulsivity or a deeply ingrained belief in one's own invincibility.
Invincibility, yeah, that's got to be it.
The ankle monitor is designed to be a psychological deterrent, right? A heavy physical reminder that the state is watching. To completely ignore that tether and proceed with a complex armed robbery suggests a mindset where the immediate desire for the contract and the wealth completely obliterated any rational thought about the inevitable consequences.
So the federal authorities didn't even have to hunt for his location.
No.
It was actively sitting on their own servers.
Exactly.
But the digital dragnet didn't stop with the ankle monitor. It immediately expanded to the vehicles.
Yeah, the affidavit constructs a multi-state map of their movements using automated infrastructure. Investigators identified a 2020 Dodge Charger Hellcat.
And this wasn't just some burner car.
No, this wasn't a stolen, anonymous vehicle. The registration belonged to the father of one of the suspects, right, and it was displaying Tennessee license plates.
Okay, a Hellcat is an aggressively loud, high-performance muscle car. It is the antithesis of a low-profile getaway vehicle.
It's the opposite of subtle. Furthermore, it was traveling in tandem with a Dodge Ram.
Right.
The authorities tracked both vehicles using a sprawling network of automated license plate readers, or ALPRs.
Now explain ALPRs for anyone who isn't familiar.
So these systems use optical character recognition technology. They're mounted on traffic lights, toll gantries, and police cruisers, and they continuously scan, read, and log the license plate of every single vehicle that passes through their field of vision.
Just constantly scanning.
Constantly, and they stamp each read with a precise time and GPS coordinate.
So the ALPR network painted a literal line on a map, tracking the Hellcat and the Ram as they convoyed from Memphis, Tennessee, all the way down to Dallas, Texas, between January 8th and January 9th.
Exactly. And the cameras also flagged the Hellcat traveling in tight proximity to a white Buick Enclave around the time of the offense.
A third car.
When investigators ran the plates on the Enclave, they found it was a rental vehicle. They subpoenaed the rental agency records, which revealed the Enclave was rented directly by Williams Sr. under his own name.
The father rents the vehicle under his own identity and drives it to the staging ground of an armed robbery.
It's incredible.
But the vehicle telemetry and the ankle monitor are just the outer layers. The cell phone data is the incredibly dense mortar that locks every single suspect into the exact same physical space.
Yeah, the FBI special agent secured the cell phone records for almost the entire syndicate. Williams Jr., Williams Sr., Wright, Johnson, Waters, Rogers, and Gibson.
That's basically everyone.
Right. And they utilized CSLI, which is cell site location information.
Yes. We need to explain how CSLI actually functions, because it is the backbone of modern surveillance.
It really is.
Every time your smartphone receives a text message, refreshes an app in the background, or simply checks to see if it has a signal, it sends out a handshake to the nearest cell tower.
Just a little ping to say, I'm here.
Right. And the telecommunications companies log every single one of those handshakes. In a dense urban center like Dallas, you are constantly surrounded by towers.
Dozens of them.
Exactly. Investigators use an algorithm that measures the time delay between your phone pinging 3 different towers simultaneously.
Triangulation?
Yes, triangulation. By drawing overlapping circles based on that time delay, they can triangulate the exact location of a phone down to a radius of a few meters.
It's unbelievably precise. And when the FBI took the triangulation data from those 7 cell phones, layered it over the GPS data from the ankle monitor, and then overlaid the ALPR data from the Hellcat, the Ram, and the Enclave, they discovered a terrifyingly perfect synchronization.
A perfect match.
The Law and Crime broadcast read the affidavit verbatim, and the mathematical precision is staggering. Between 2:28 p.m. and 2:46 p.m., all of those disparate digital signals converged into a single cluster at the Windrose Tower, which is notably where Williams Jr. previously resided.
So the entire crew forms a digital cloud at the apartment.
Exactly, a literal digital cloud. The data then shows that entire synchronized cloud moving as a single unit.
Wow.
The phones, the ankle monitor, and the vehicles travel from the Windrose Tower directly to the offense location, the recording studio arriving precisely at 3:00 p.m.
Which perfectly corroborates the eyewitness timeline of William Sr. being outside on his phone trying to secure the alternate studio space.
Right, and then the digital cloud just hovers over the crime scene for an hour and 45 minutes.
While the robbery is happening.
Yes.
Right.
And then at approximately 4:50 p.m., which flawlessly aligns with the 4:48 p.m. physical surveillance footage of the suspects fleeing out the east entrance, the digital cloud breaks away.
They start moving.
The ankle monitor, the Buick Enclave location data, the cluster of cell phones, the Hellcat, and the Ram all travel together, leaving the crime scene and moving steadily toward the area of the Star in Frisco, Texas, arriving at 5:07 p.m.
It is an inescapable digital net.
It really is.
Because if one system fails, you have a loose thread. Maybe a defense attorney could argue a cell tower glitched.
Sure.
But when 4 completely separate databases, run by the Federal Probation Office, the local traffic authority, the rental car corporation, and the major telecom providers, when they all log your physical presence at the exact same location down to the millisecond, the mathematical probability of a glitch drops to absolute 0.
It's mathematically impossible to refute. The tracking data continues flawlessly. The affidavit notes that several members utilized cell towers covering the Star in Frisco until about 9:30 p.m.
Okay, so they stayed there for a bit.
Then the digital signals diverge. Williams Jr. and his father remain in the Frisco area overnight. But the rest of the crew, Wright, Johnson, Waters, Rogers, Gibson, along with the Hellcat and the Ram, they move their digital footprint to the immediate vicinity of a Comfort Inn, where they settle for the night.
And to fully close the loop, the cell records show that 3 days later, on January 13th, the phones belonging to Wright, Johnson, and Waters, traveling alongside the Dodge Ram, make the long drive from Dallas all the way back to Memphis.
The digital dragnet caught the arrival, the staging, the crime, the immediate escape, and the retreat.
All of it.
This is the monumental hurdle that modern defense attorneys face. When a federal prosecutor stands before a jury today, they are not relying on a shaky eyewitness who might have been traumatized or confused in a dark room.
Or who might recant their testimony.
Right. They are presenting a synchronized symphony of irrefutable data. Arguing against human memory is the foundation of defense work. Arguing against the synchronized convergence of 4 independent, automated tracking systems is a nearly impossible task.
Now, you would assume that after executing a hostile takeover of a recording studio, knowing you just committed a massive federal crime against a high-profile target, the crew would immediately embrace absolute operational security.
You'd hope so.
You burn the clothes, you smash the cell phones, you pay exclusively in cash, and you vanish.
You would certainly expect a heightened level of paranoia post-crime. But the high-tech digital mistakes were immediately followed by incredibly sloppy, old-school physical and financial blunders.
Oh man, physical trail. Let's examine the Comfort Inn.
Yeah, let's talk about the hotel.
The digital data tracked a large portion of the crew to that specific hotel. Now, when the FBI went to verify that data, they didn't have to conduct a complex sting operation to figure out who was in the rooms.
No, it was handed to them.
According to the affidavit, the hotel management records confirmed that Gibson, one of the primary suspects, walked up to the front desk, booked 4 rooms, and paid for them using his own real government-issued identification.
I mean, it is a textbook example of the phenomenon known as the adrenaline crash.
Adrenaline crash, yeah, explain that.
During the planning and execution of a high-stakes, violent crime, the human body is flooded with cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. The biological focus is narrowed entirely on the immediate execution of the act and the survival of the immediate threat. But once they are miles away from the studio, the perceived danger evaporates.
They feel like they're safe.
Right. The adrenaline rapidly recedes, and massive physical and mental fatigue sets in. The hypervigilance completely drops away, and individuals revert to their ingrained, mundane routines.
Like checking into a hotel.
Yes, like handing a clerk a real driver's license to book a room, completely forgetting that they are now the primary targets of a federal manhunt.
It's wild. And the hotel provided investigators with much more than a credit card receipt. They handed over the lobby and hallway surveillance footage.
Oh, the footage.
And the video provided a prosecutor's dream scenario.
It really did.
The footage allegedly shows Wright, Johnson, Waters, Rogers, Gibson, Glover, and McDaniel walking around the hotel property. But the devastating detail is that they were wearing the exact same, highly distinctive clothing they were wearing during the armed kidnapping just hours prior.
Literally the same clothes.
Yeah. The DOJ affidavit literally features side-by-side photographic comparisons embedded in the text.
Visual aids for the judge.
Exactly. On the left side of the page, you have a high contrast, still pulled from the recording studio cameras, showing a suspect actively participating in an armed robbery. On the right side of the page, you have a still from the Comfort Inn surveillance cameras a few hours later.
Showing the exact same suspect.
Yes, wearing the exact same distinct custom hoodie or patterned pants, casually walking down a hotel corridor. It preemptively annihilates any potential defense strategy relying on mistaken identity.
Oh, completely destroys it. You cannot stand in front of a jury and claim, that wasn't my client in the studio, that was an unrelated individual who happened to be wearing my client's exact outfit.
It just doesn't fly.
But the sloppy mistakes weren't confined to the hotel. They left a physical trail right at the scene of the crime in the form of red Solo cups.
Red Solo cups. It is such a remarkably mundane detail that unravels so much.
It really is.
The crew was in the studio, hanging out, having drinks before the violence erupted. They leave the cups scattered around the room. When the crime scene technicians arrive to process the space, those cups are a goldmine.
Because of the material.
Exactly. Plastic is a non-porous surface, making it an ideal medium for capturing and preserving the oils and sweat that make up a latent fingerprint.
So the techs dusted the cups?
They dusted the cups, lifted the prints, ran them through the National Automated Fingerprint Identification System, and got direct, inclusive matches to two of the suspects, Gibson and Rogers.
So now look at the layers of evidence.
It's stacking up.
You have the GPS telemetry putting them in the room, the cell towers putting them in the room, the surveillance video capturing their faces in the room, and their literal biological signatures on the garbage left behind.
The physical presence is an undeniable fact.
It is undeniable. However, proving physical presence is only half the battle in a robbery charge.
Oh, true.
The prosecution also bears the burden of proving the theft itself. They must establish beyond a reasonable doubt that these specific individuals took those specific high-value items from the victims.
Right, and this brings us to what is arguably the most self-destructive, shocking twist in this entire saga. The social media hubris.
The flexing.
The flexing. Not only did they allegedly steal hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of custom jewelry and cash, they immediately logged onto the internet and flaunted the stolen goods for the entire world to see.
It's a psychological phenomenon. It highlights a fascinating concept regarding status signaling within specific subcultures.
Break that down.
So for certain criminal syndicates, particularly those adjacent to the wealth and image-obsessed entertainment industry, the acquisition of the stolen goods is only half the objective.
The actual stealing isn't enough.
No, the crime itself holds significantly less value if it cannot be publicly authenticated by an audience.
Wow, okay.
The flexing, the boasting, the digital display of dominance, it is a mandatory component of the act, serving to elevate their status and humiliate their rivals on a public stage.
And the affidavit methodically catalogs the Instagram posts, and it is just brutal to read how thoroughly they incriminated themselves.
It really is.
Let's break down Rogers first. The surveillance footage allegedly captures Rogers walking out of the studio carrying the designer Louis Vuitton bag that was physically ripped from the victim. Okay. Just 5 days later, on January 15th, an account linked to Rogers, operating under the handle DamnFool375, uploads a video. In this video, Rogers is prominently displaying a Rolex GMT Master 2 with an oyster steel band on his wrist.
Now, to the casual observer on Instagram, a luxury watch is simply a symbol of generic wealth. But to a forensic investigator, a luxury watch is a highly specific, serialized piece of physical evidence.
Serial numbers change everything.
They do, because the victim, MM, was incredibly thorough. When he reported the assault and the robbery to the police, he didn't vaguely describe a silver watch.
He brought receipts.
Literally. He provided the authorities with high-resolution macro photography of the watch, the original dealer purchase receipt, and most importantly, the unique manufacturer-engraved serial number located on the casing.
So the FBI is literally sitting at a desk, pausing the Instagram video, enhancing the frame, and comparing the intricate visual details of the watch on Roger's wrist to the documentation provided by the man who was violently choked in the studio.
And the affidavit asserts it is a definitive visual match.
Furthermore, the Damn Fool account posted images of Rogers wearing the exact same distinct footwear he was recorded wearing during the robbery.
So it's not just the watch, it's the shoes, too. But Rogers was not the only one engaging in this status signaling.
Not by a long shot.
The affidavit extensively details posts originating from Glover's Instagram account. The very next day after the violent takeover, January 11th, Glover posts a story.
The next day.
He proudly sets the location tag to Dallas, Texas. The image displays a massive pile of physical cash and prominently features a Rolex that is visually identical to the one stolen from MM.
And the authorities are just continuously logging the screenshots.
Just saving everything to the server.
6 days later, on January 17th, Glover uploads another story. He's once again showing off that same Rolex, and he includes a caption stating he got a new rope.
A new rope.
And the FBI affidavit actually helpfully translates this slang for the judge, noting it refers to a new watch or a heavy necklace.
I love when the FBI has to translate slang in federal documents.
It's always so clinical. But the absolute most damning piece of social media evidence, like the specific post that ties the stolen property directly and undeniably back to the victims of the studio, occurs on January 19th.
This is the nail in the coffin.
Glover posts a series of videos of himself wearing a highly specific bespoke piece of jewelry, a heavy necklace featuring a custom 1017 pendant. 1017, the exact name of RD's record label.
Yeah.
The very label that Williams Jr. was allegedly committing a federal kidnapping to escape from.
It is just unreal.
And the affidavit explicitly states, this pendant appears completely identical to the custom piece, violently torn directly off the neck of the victim, BP, during the robbery.
The sheer audacity of wearing the victim's custom corporate logo on the internet days after robbing them is staggering.
Now, you might look at this and try to formulate a defense. If you are the defense attorney, you are analyzing these screenshots and preparing a counter-narrative.
You have to try.
Right. You will argue before the jury, my client is a rapper. He operates in a crew that projects immense wealth. Dozens of people in the music industry own Rolexes. Cash is entirely fungible. A $100 bill is a $100 bill. A lot of guys might even commission custom pendants that look similar or are replicas.
Right. They will try to argue that they simply own similar items and the timing is merely an incredibly unfortunate coincidence.
That is absolutely the foundational argument the defense will mount, and it is a legally necessary one.
They'll say, you can't prove this specific Rolex is that specific Rolex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They will point out that a Rolex GMT Master 2, while expensive, is still a mass-produced consumer good. They will aggressively attack the resolution of the Instagram videos, arguing that you cannot definitively read a microscopic serial number off a compressed social media video, and therefore you cannot prove it is the exact stolen watch.
They will say, you can't read the serial number from an Instagram story, Your Honor, therefore you have reasonable doubt.
However, the prosecution will dismantle that defense by relying on the crushing weight of circumstantial evidence.
Yes, circumstantial evidence gets a bad rap, but it is incredibly powerful.
It is. They will argue that the key factor is not just the possession of a Rolex, it is the convergence of timing, location, and association.
Exactly.
They will tell the jury. It is not just that Glover possesses a Rolex, it is that Glover posted an image of a Rolex, tagged in Dallas, the literal day after a man in Dallas was violently robbed of that exact model of Rolex, perpetrated by a group of men that GPS, cell towers, and license plate readers prove Glover was actively traveling with.
Right. The defense is forced to explain away a mountain of astronomical coincidences, while the prosecution presents a single, cohesive, seamlessly data-driven narrative.
And there is one final critical piece to the social media puzzle that Jesse Weber highlighted in the broadcast.
Oh, the deleted posts.
Yes. When the Long Crime research team attempted to view these Instagram accounts while preparing their coverage, they discovered something incredibly telling. The pages had been systematically scrubbed.
Scrubbed clean.
A few generic lifestyle posts remained, but every single piece of flexing, the jewelry, the cash, the location tags in Dallas, had been entirely deleted.
Which introduces a massive secondary legal vulnerability regarding the spoliation and destruction of evidence.
Spoliation.
If the federal prosecutors can prove that the defendants or associates acting on their direct orders actively logged into those accounts and deleted those specific posts after realizing the FBI was closing in, that action is a separate, severe crime.
It is the ultimate proof of what the law calls consciousness of guilt. You do not frantically hide or destroy something unless you implicitly know that it incriminates you. Deleting the photos is practically a digital confession that you knew the items were hot.
And in the realm of digital forensic investigations, clicking delete on an app rarely means the data is truly eradicated.
Not at all.
The FBI routinely serves preservation letters and sweeping search warrants directly to Meta, the parent company of Instagram, often weeks before any arrests are made public.
He probably already had the data before the guys even deleted it.
Very likely. The government likely possesses the original metadata, the uncompressed high-resolution uploads, and the exact IP addresses of the devices that initiated the deletion commands. The attempt to scrub the pages will likely only result in severe obstruction of justice charges being added to an already overwhelming indictment.
Which transitions us into the climax of this entire saga. The federal hammer.
The hammer comes down.
The tracking data is compiled, the biological evidence is matched, the social media intelligence is secured. The United States government officially brings the full, devastating weight of its authority down on the suspects.
And the charges formalized in the criminal complaint are apocalyptic for the defendants.
Apocalyptic is the right word.
All 9 individuals, Lantrell Williams Jr., Lantrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., Kadarius Waters, Terrence Rogers, De'Arian Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Cord Johnson, and Darian McDaniel, are federally charged with kidnapping.
Kidnapping. We have to unpack the significance of the word federal here, because jurisdiction dictates the severity of the nightmare they are facing.
It is a totally different ballgame.
We are not talking about the local Dallas Police Department charging them with a state-level aggravated robbery. This is a federal indictment.
Right.
You might wonder how a local robbery in a Dallas studio becomes a federal case.
It's a great question.
It usually relies on statutes like the Hobbs Act, which allows federal intervention if a robbery affects interstate commerce. And robbing a major music label head certainly does. Or the interstate travel element of the Federal Kidnapping Act, as they cross state lines from Tennessee to Texas to execute the crime.
The distinction between state and federal court is monumental. A state charge is subject to local district attorneys, local juries, and state prison systems, where parole is often a possibility.
You can sometimes do half your time on a state charge.
Exactly. A federal charge means the FBI built the case, the United States Department of Justice is prosecuting it with virtually unlimited financial and forensic resources, and if convicted, the defendants will serve their sentences in a federal penitentiary.
And the kicker:
there is no parole in the federal system. You serve the time you are given.
The specific statute cited in the documents is 18 U.S.C. 1201C. The historical context here is wild. This stems from the Lindbergh Law, created in the 1930s to allow federal agents to pursue kidnappers across state lines.
After the Lindbergh baby kidnapping.
Yes, and the modern penalties are sobering. The U.S. Attorney Ryan Rayold made the stakes incredibly clear during his press conference. While there is no mandatory minimum sentence for this specific charge under the statute, the maximum range of punishment extends all the way to life imprisonment.
Life in a federal facility. And as the U.S. Attorney emphasized, federal judges rely heavily on strict sentencing guidelines, which aggressively factor in a defendant's previous criminal history.
Which is absolutely catastrophic news for the primary suspect, Williams Jr.
Exactly. The U.S. Attorney explicitly stated that allegedly committing a severe federal offense while actively on home confinement while physically wearing the federal ankle monitor is a massive aggravating factor.
That's just pouring gasoline on the fire.
It demonstrates to the court a complete brazen disregard for the leniency previously granted by the justice system. If convicted, the sentencing judge will view that ankle monitor not simply as a piece of tracking technology, but as an undeniable symbol of incorrigibility.
Now, you might be looking at this massive roster of 9 guys and thinking about the specifics of the room.
Yeah, let's look at the group dynamics legally.
The document alleges Williams Jr. held the gun to RD's head. It alleges a few other guys pulled guns on BP and MM. But what about the guys who were just standing by the door? What about the guy who was just carrying the duffel bag?
Right?
How are the guys who never pointed a weapon at anyone facing a potential life sentence in federal prison for kidnapping?
That question strikes at the very heart of how federal law enforcement systematically dismantles organized criminal syndicates. The answer lies in one of the most powerful tools in the DOJ's arsenal: conspiracy.
Conspiracy. Let's break down the actual mechanics of a federal conspiracy charge, because it is wildly different from the pop culture idea of criminals sitting in a smoky back room signing a blood oath to commit a crime.
The legal threshold for conspiracy is incredibly functional and broad. Jesse Weber explained the doctrine perfectly during the broadcast.
How does it work?
A conspiracy, under federal law, requires only two elements: an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime, followed by an overt act taken by any member of the group in furtherance of that specific agreement.
Okay, so step one is the agreement. But the government doesn't need to produce a signed contract outlining the robbery, which is darkly ironic, considering their trip to Staples.
Very ironic.
The agreement can be entirely implied by their coordinated actions, correct?
Precisely. When 9 men coordinate a multi-state road trip from Tennessee to Texas, gather at a specific apartment, travel in a unified convoy to a commercial office building, wait for a logistical signal, walk into a soundproof room together, and then several members produce high-capacity firearms while the others facilitate the theft and physically block the exits.
Yeah, that's not a coincidence.
The law views that deeply coordinated action as undeniable structural proof of an agreement.
And what constitutes the overt act?
An overt act is any tangible, physical step taken to execute the agreed-upon plan. It doesn't even have to be illegal on its own.
Give me an example.
The morning trip to Staples to print the contract is an overt act. Gibson walking out to the car to retrieve the heavy duffel bag is an overt act. Williams Sr. renting the white Buick Enclave is an overt act.
Okay, so anything that moves the plan forward.
Exactly. The conspiracy doctrine dictates that if you are a willing participant in the conspiracy, you are legally responsible for the foreseeable actions of all your co-conspirators.
Wow. So if you agree to help forcefully intimidate a label boss to sign a piece of paper, and the guy standing next to you pulls an AK-style pistol and steals a Rolex, you are entirely on the hook for the armed robbery and the kidnapping, because your presence helped create the overwhelming force that allowed it to happen.
That's right.
In the eyes of the federal government, you're all legally holding the gun.
Exactly. You do not have to be the individual issuing the commands or pulling the trigger to be crushed by the full weight of the federal statute. Your willing presence and participation in the orchestrated environment are more than enough to secure a conviction.
The execution of the arrest warrants was a massive logistical undertaking.
It had to be, across multiple states.
The U.S. Attorney confirmed that 8 of the 9 defendants were successfully apprehended in highly coordinated sweeps spanning across Dallas, Texas, and Memphis, Tennessee. It was a staggering display of collaborative force between the FBI, federal marshals, and local police departments.
It was a flawlessly synchronized takedown. However, there was one glaring piece of unfinished business addressed at the press conference.
Oh, right, the missing man.
At the time the Law and Crime broadcast aired, one individual remained actively on the run.
A reporter from KRLD Radio actually pressed the U.S. Attorney on the strategy behind the press conference.
Yeah, that was an interesting moment.
The reporter essentially asked, "You are going completely public with a complaint, unsealing the documents, and revealing your entire evidentiary hand. Aren't you terrified that broadcasting everything you know is going to tip off the 9th man and make it significantly harder to apprehend him?"
The U.S. Attorney's response was remarkably confident. He argued that the strategic element of surprise was already gone.
Because the others were already caught.
Right. The other 8 defendants had already had their public detention hearings and initial appearances in court. The reality that the federal indictment existed and the names of those indicted was already a matter of widely known public record within their networks.
He basically told the press he already knows we are coming for him.
Yes. And Rayold expressed absolute, unwavering trust in his federal task forces to track down this final fugitive and bring him into custody. He also used the platform to offer an open, chilling invitation for the fugitive to simply surrender immediately.
Noting it was the only way to avoid the inevitable, terrifying reality of a SWAT team kicking in his door in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
We also have to acknowledge the breathtaking speed of this entire judicial process. The alleged crime took place on January 10th. By late January, mere weeks later, The FBI has a highly detailed 32-page federal affidavit drafted, signed by a judge, sealed and executed, resulting in a multi-state sweep of arrests.
It serves as a stark testament to the sheer efficiency of modern law enforcement when the evidentiary trail is primarily digital.
They didn't even have to do the shoe leather detective work.
They didn't have to spend 6 months knocking on doors in Memphis hoping to find an informant willing to talk. The core data was already sitting dormant on the massive servers of Verizon, AT&T, Apple, Meta, and the Federal Probation Office.
Just waiting to be collected.
They simply drafted the subpoenas, extracted the data, perfectly aligned the timestamps across multiple systems, and built an airtight, mathematically proven timeline that culminated in federal kidnapping charges.
It is a staggering display of investigative leverage. And it leaves us with an incredibly haunting realization about the fundamental nature of the modern world we all inhabit.
It presents a profound paradox that every single person has to grapple with, whether they are a famous multi-platinum musician or just a regular citizen navigating the realities of the digital age.
Think about the tools that were absolutely central to this entire narrative.
Right, the everyday tools.
The cell phones that keep us constantly connected to our networks. The GPS navigation systems that guide our daily lives. The social media platforms that allow artists to build massive, lucrative empires, connect instantly with millions of fans, and publicly flaunt their hard-earned success.
Even the Staples printer.
Even the simple, bureaucratic ability to print a legal document at a local office supply store. These are the very instruments of modern convenience and commercial success.
But in this specific case, those exact same tools became the literal instruments of their total undoing.
How so?
The very cellular technology they utilized to coordinate their tactical movements betrayed their exact location to the government. The social platforms they used to boast about their newly acquired wealth provided the time-stamped, high-resolution photographic evidence of their alleged crimes.
What's in the contract?
The legal system they attempted to manipulate with a freshly printed piece of paper ultimately ensnared them in an inescapable federal conspiracy web.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword of the 21st century. In a world where we feel culturally compelled to record, broadcast, and digitize every single action we take just to prove to the world that we exist, we are simultaneously, constantly, and relentlessly building the perfect, indestructible evidentiary case against ourselves.
It's a scary thought.
Every cellular ping, every Instagram post, every swipe of a credit card is a permanent subpoena-ready record.
It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Is the convenience of the digital age worth the total irreversible surrender of our anonymity? Because the digital footprint never sleeps, and it absolutely never forgets.
And that is a chilling thought to leave you with. If this deep dive into the Pooh, Shiesty, and Gucci Mane federal complaint blew your mind as much as it blew ours, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. We want to hear directly from you in the comments below.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
What do you think is the absolute craziest piece of evidence in this entire 32-page case? Was it the sheer audacity of wearing the federal ankle monitor to an armed robbery?
For me, it's the ankle monitor.
Or maybe the Instagram flexing of the serialized Rolex. Or the frankly absurd trip to Staples to print the contract. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button on this video to help us appease the almighty YouTube algorithm gods, and make sure your notifications are turned all the way on so you never miss our next deep dive into the wildest files out there. We'll catch you in the next one.